Welcome to Mechanical Advantage Garage. I'm Kerry, and this is my Mecum wrap-up video, where we're going to talk about what I learned from this whole experience, what I bought at Mecum, and some of the controversies. So let's jump into it. I guess the first lesson I learned from Mecum is I bought a microphone. My volume wasn't always great in loud spaces, and after covering Mecum and then the Garage Brood show in Cincinnati the next weekend, all that background noise made it very hard to record with audio. So I went ahead and bought a lavalier microphone that Bluetooths to my phone because I shoot everything off my cell phone. I don't have fancy camera equipment. I'm very low budget, low key. Helps me get the videos out faster, but I do everything on my iPhone. So yeah, that's the first thing. But yes, I did buy something at Mecum, and we'll talk about that at the end of the video. But let's jump into some of the controversies that were happening at Mecum, and let's talk about them a little bit. The biggest one top of mind is the 1974 Kawasaki Z2, right? That was actually brought out to Mecum by someone from the Columbus, Ohio motorcycle community. Someone I've met, like, I think once before. Seems like a nice guy. But there was a lot of discussion about that bike and the VIN number, and a lot of it was sort of, the fires were sort of stoked by the cycle drag videos that have been out, because that's a huge channel and it has a big following. And not so much by the guy who runs Cycle Drag itself in the content of the videos, although I do take issue with him just grabbing whatever experts were wandering around Mecum, because I don't think there's going to be a expert for a bike they never sold in the U.S. and hardly anybody stateside has ever seen, and Mecum has never sold before. So that notwithstanding, let's talk about that a little bit. The motorcycle community, at least the online motorcycle community, seemed to have grabbed the torches and pitchforks for that, being very accusatory of the seller and very accusatory of Mecum itself, that some sort of nefarious dealings were going on, which I don't think was the case given all of the circumstances, right? So let's cover the first thing, right? A lot of people called out that transaction as being a fraud, or somebody was getting ripped off. But the transaction never went through, right? The buyer was allowed to unwind the deal and get out of it. So nobody was scammed. Nobody was attempted to be scammed. There was a disagreement about a material item on the motorcycle. And because of that, no sale happened. Nobody made any money. And nobody's really happy. Buyer didn't get his motorcycle. Seller didn't get his money. Mecum didn't get their commission. But at the end of the day, nobody was really hurt either, in the sense that nobody was taken advantage of, right? But that doesn't stop the motorcycle community from, lighting those torches and grabbing those pitchforks and saying, "Oh, he's trying to rip somebody off. He's trying to..." No, it didn't happen, right? There's a lot of blame on Mecum for not vetting the bike, and let's talk about that a little bit, right? Mecum is a very unique thing for motorcycles, at least the motorcycle auction that they do in January. It's not like your local modern-ish motorcycle auction for dealers, or even some of the local auctions that people would put on, right? They are getting an international market. Bikes from everywhere are flooding into the place. And I think it's a little unreasonable to expect Mecum to have people on staff that would spot, all the different ways. And there are thousands of different ways that people could do VIN tampering, right? They're not going to employ experts. And by the way, they wouldn't just have to do it for VIN tampering. They have to have experts for every kind of motorcycle that's out there. And keep in mind, motorcycles made before 1972 are not required to have VIN numbers on the frame. motorcycles right around 1971, especially for Harley Davidsons, 1970 and below, do not have frame numbers. They do not have a vehicle identification number stamped in the frame. They title to the engine. That's every Harley Davidson, right? So if you're buying an old Ironhead Sportster and it's a 1967, you're not going to find a number on that frame. You're going to have to take the title and match it up to the engine, which, by the way, is why people like old Harleys, because you can build choppers out of them because your title travels with the engine. You just stick the engine in any frame you want, and there's your motorcycle. But getting back to it, BMWs, like pre/2 BMWs, the frame number, you have to get an inspection mirror to find it. It's like not visible, right? There are bikes there that were never sold in the U.S. They don't conform to U.S. VIN standards, and they're 25 years old. And 25 years old is the 90s. So there's a lot there. And I think it's unreasonable to expect Mecum to be an expert in all of it. They have to rely on the sellers bringing stuff there in good faith, right? Now, that said, they also have to rely on the buyers, once they've done an inspection, to raise issues if they feel something is not right. And in this case, that happened. There was a defect, and the buyer brought it up. There was something he was not comfortable with. There was something that the seller couldn't easily authenticate on site. And so the transaction got unwound, and that's where we ended. Seller got his bike back. Mecum didn't get its fees. Buyer didn't get his bike. Now, there is something else that I didn't hear anybody talk about in any videos. And there's a really great Haggerty article that just came out that I think is better than anything that Cycle Drag published on YouTube. And it sort of jumps in and explains how this is, not the horrible thing that everyone thinks it is. But nobody in any one of those has mentioned the possibility that the buyer just felt they overpaid and decided to find any flaw they could with the motorcycle and just happened to find a really good one, right? $81,000 is a tremendous amount of money for a motorcycle. It's an insane amount of money for a Japanese motorcycle from the 70s. There were TZ750s, which are real racing motorcycles, that didn't get that, right? With real provenances, right? There were things there that were legendary that didn't get that. And here's the other thing. Their Z2s are a Japanese domestic market only bike, which means that you find them primarily in Japan and Australia. Now, why Australia? Australia was the dumping ground for Japanese bikes for a long time because they have very similar road laws to Japan. So anytime the Japanese had something that they couldn't sell, or if they wanted to sell more units, they pushed it to Australia. And because it went to Australia, a lot of them ended up in England too, right? Because there's a trade route that goes between England and Australia, having been a former colony and whatnot. So you go and look at the back of any of the British motorcycle magazines, or you look at Australian classifieds, or you look at the Japanese classifieds and Japanese auctions, you can find Z2s. They're out there, and they're not cheap. They are $20,000 to $40,000 motorcycles, right? They're not $80,000, right? And I don't think it would cost you $80,000 to go buy one in Japan, the best example you could find, and ship it back to the States. So there's an entire possibility here that the buyer got into a heated bidding, saw red, kept bidding, and then once it was done, realized, oh, I overpaid. And then started to say, well, let's go see if we can find any reason to get out of this, right? And they happen to find, something that was there. Now, look, I don't know the buyer. I don't know what's in the buyer's head. This is purely my speculation. Again, don't grab torches and pitchforks and, run out there. But I just felt like it's something that didn't get discussed, right? That there's a potential here that the buyer just didn't feel like they got, that they felt like they may have overpaid, and that's what also prompted this sort of investigation. That said, there are a couple things I do want to bring up. The owner of the Z2 Apparently, he's a very nice guy. I mean, I've met him. I don't have any issues with him. He is. There are some things that I take issue with in Mecum listings, and I don't know who writes those listings. I don't know if it's the owners or if it's Mecum or if it's a collaboration of both, where the owners submit stuff and there are disclosures, right? But this is what I'll say. There was a known issue with the VIN number on the neck, right? It looks difficult to read. That should have been a disclosure. Who missed that in doing the write-up? Mecum, the seller, I don't know. Also, I am a little dubious on the 1 of 9 in the U.S. because I think there's more than 9 in the U.S., right? I can't prove it. I don't think they could prove that there's 9 in the U.S. Maybe if they combed like all 50 states' registration records. But I was at Mid-Ohio one year when Tom from Rice Paddy bought a Z2 out of the lineup to get in the gate that was in the bed of a pickup truck. And it was like a huge find, and he was so happy. Because I can't think of it going to a better person, by the way. Because he is a consummate Cowie nut and a Z1 nut, and is one of the other 2 people here in Columbus that has a Rickman besides me, and he has a Rickman Kawasaki, and I have a Rickman CB750. So, and there are other people in Columbus with Rickmans, I just don't know them. Not the point. Point is, there are some things in that description that I was uncomfortable with, right? But that was like a theme for Mecum, right? And I've talked about this in some of my other videos. The descriptions for Mecum are, they're not always great. And I get it, right? If you're somebody liquidating an estate of bikes, you just copy and paste because you have 30 bikes to get through and you're not really versed on all of them. And that happens maybe, and that's what you submit to Mecum, and Mecum sort of fishes out stuff, right? But there's stuff that was inaccurate. There were years that were inaccurate. There were things listed for bikes that were inaccurate. They were clearly inaccurate. Like if you knew these bikes, you know that it was not possible to have a CB750, that was made in 1970 be registered as or titled as a 1969. So there's that, right? I don't know how that works out. Like if a buyer relies on that information and then they find out that that information was incorrect, whether they can make a claim with Mecum and say, I don't want to buy this now because I feel like you've made a material misrepresentation. I don't know how that works, but it doesn't make me happy. Anyway, the seller of the Z2 is going to go back and he's going to prove that the neck number is legitimate. And he's going to prove that everything is correct about the bike. And he did a wonderful restoration on it. I'm going to say that it was probably one of the best restored motorcycles there. But, if I could be a little critical about this, if you are the kind of person who is a seasoned motorcycle veteran and you are restoring a motorcycle and you see that there is something that, could be questioned about a VIN, wouldn't you correct that before you take it to something that is a international marketplace like Mecum? I would, but everybody's different. So again, let's not grab torches and pitchforks. Let's just think about this logically and let the thing play out. So that's controversy number 1, right? Controversy number 2 is there were some bikes there that were sold on bill of sale that were imported from England. And I have to say I was kind of disappointed about this because the person who ends up, I don't want to say screwed because they're not screwed, but the person who ended up hurt by this happens to be a pillar of the Honda restoration community, and that's David Silver, right? He brought a whole bunch of bikes in from England that are clearly over 25 years old and had titles, but because they had foreign English titles that hadn't been converted to U.S. titles, they were sold on bill of sale through Mecum, right? Or at least they were listed as being sold on bill of sale from Mecum. That affects value, right? So if you're someone who lives in Ohio, you need a title, right? Or you need to be very well versed in what's required to get a title. So something like an English title may scare you away, and you're not going to bid on that. So that cuts down your bidder's pool. So those bikes, some of those bikes really, like he brought a whole bunch of Douglas Dragonflies, which I think are just gorgeous mid-century bikes. Very pretty. They're a little small for my taste, but I think they're beautiful. And I don't think they sold for what they're worth, right? Because they were listed as being sold on bill of sale. Now, being a 1950s motorcycle or a 1940s motorcycle, for my father, it wouldn't have been a problem because you can register anything pre-72 in New York with a VIN rubbing and inspection and 4 forms. They actually have specific forms for no title because New York doesn't issue titles for bikes that old. They issue transferable registration, which counts as ownership papers. And before you all get crazy about, well, that's not a title. Well, you know what? I've taken all my transferable registrations and I've converted them to titles in Ohio, but these were ones in my name, right? There's nothing shady going on with that. But I did think it hurt him, and I feel bad because, you know, David Silver is a pillar of the Honda community. He brings restoration parts that we all need. And he's someone who helped me out personally. So I wish that he had done better at Mecum. It's not really a controversy. It's more of wishful thinking. But I do think it kind of sucked that Mecum wouldn't recognize the English titles for this and disclose those bikes were sold with English titles rather than just disclose the sold on bill of sale. Because I think that would hurt a lot of savvy bidders. Now, what are the lessons I learned from Mecum? Well, the lesson number one that I learned is know the value of the motorcycles you want. And I don't just mean like the international value or the national value. Know what your home market will bear, right? Because there were plenty of bikes that sold at Mecum that I was like, wow, that is cheap. And then I realized that they probably would have sold for the same amount locally to me. And then there were other bikes I saw that were like, you know, that's expensive. But wait, if it's going to New York, I don't think that's that expensive. In fact, I think that's fair market price for New York City. So know what the bike is worth to you. And also, you know, come to bid on stuff you want, right? There were a ton of bikes there where I was like, oh, look, there's a 68 BSA for $3,500. I'd love to have that, you know, but I realized that I'd have to bid $3,750 to own it. And somebody might outbid me again at $4,000, and then we go up, right? So bidding is a strategy. But I also happen to know from experience in reading Mecum auction results that anything that's not a BSA Gold Star tends to do pretty poorly at Mecum, right? As do bikes that are not very clean, right? So that's the other thing I sort of discovered. It's an older crowd. I was probably one of the younger guys there at 45. And the people that buy at Mecum want restored and clean over patina, right? So there are some bikes that if you had a patina and it had a story, yes, it would bring money. But there was a panhead that sold for what the engine was worth because it just looked ratty. You know, there were iron heads, even nice clean ones, that sold for half of their value because, you know, they were okay bikes. They weren't the cleanest things around. There was a 58 there that was just all original, and it had wear. And I thought the wear was cool, but the bidders didn't, and that thing went cheap. It went $5,000 for what I think is a $10,000 bike. You know, so know your market, know your audience, know who your bidders are, and know what you want, right? So we tried to bid. Dad especially tried to bid on a couple of notable motorcycles. He wanted a Moto Guzzi, and he bid on a CX100, which is a Le Mans 2 without the Le Mans 2 850 engine. It has the 1000 SP engine. Sports car with a truck motor is what a lot of people sort of refer to it as, because they couldn't get emission certification for the very fast revving, very, you know, sexy 850. So they just stuck the touring bike motor in it because it was 1000 cc until they could get the 850 certified, which came with the Le Mans 3. He bid what he thought was a fair number, kind of high for what he's seen them sell for locally. And that was $8,000, but the bike ended up selling for 11, right? So we got outbid on the things we wanted because there were people there that just wanted it more. I think another one he bid on there was another Guzzi. There was a Le Mans 3 with Astrolite wheels and a Magni fairing and a lot of work done to it. And it was a real hot rod and it was gorgeous. But he didn't know what it was worth. So he was kind of skittish about bidding, and I think he bid $4,000 for it. and I think it ended up selling for 6. And then at the end of it, he was regretting it. He's like, "Oh, I should have bid it to 8. I should have pushed that up." So know what stuff's worth, right? Which also sort of brings me up to the other controversy, but not really, and that is anybody selling an Italian bike at Mecum this year kind of took it in the pants. They were not selling for what I know, or at least what I track Italian bevel Ducatis and Lavertas and all that sell for normally in the marketplace. And I can't sort of figure that out. Is it maybe because it's a down economy, or is it because that, the people who want those bikes are older now and they're not in the discretionary spending anymore, and the bikes have been expensive for so long, younger people don't want them? I don't know. I don't know what it is. Maybe next year it'll be crazy. Mecum is not the bellwether for bike values that you think it was, or think it should be. It's really just a bunch of rich dudes bidding in a room for what they want to own. Which also kind of surprised me that Honda 750s, if it was clean, low mileage, and had the 4-in-4 pipes, single cam 750, 69, $10,000 all day long. There were a couple that were below that. Maybe they weren't as clean as they should have been. And there were a couple really nice examples that were 10 that should have been higher. Somebody got a Sandcast for $8,000. That was a highly modified bike, and I guess that that scared a lot of people away. But Honda 750s are the Ford Mustang, 60s Ford Mustang of the motorcycle world. They just made too many of them to be more valuable than 10,000. With the exception of special editions like K0s and Sandcasts and things like that, right? What else can I say about Mecum? Oh, everyone was predicting Z1s would touch $60,000 because they sold for 40 last year, and they didn't. They didn't really go above 20 or 30. The market for Z1s just wasn't there this year. Everyone was sort of predicting Kawi triples would touch $40,000, and they did on the second day. And then they went to $55,000, which kind of shocked everybody. And not just H2s, not just the 750s, but the H1s as well were going for strong numbers, $20,000. And if you told me 5 years ago an H1 would sell for $20,000, I'd be like, bull. Maybe a 69, a white one in pristine condition, but all the others, no, I can't see that happening, right? Oh, it happened. Regular late production ones, KH 500s, they were selling for strong money. So I don't know if that's this year's fluke or if it's, that those bikes finally came into their own market. It's good for me because I still have 5 of them in storage. So it means I got to go put them together or sell my projects to fund other projects because maybe I won't get to them, right? I have a really nice 73 that's complete but apart that has a title, could make somebody pretty happy. In fact, I think I found a buyer for it at Mecum. Actually, that's something else. One of the greatest parts about Mecum is the networking. You will meet everybody everywhere who are in motorcycles, restoration shops, all of people who are collectors, and you can sort of make deals outside of Mecum for stuff that you didn't bring to Mecum. I got a line on somebody that has Dunstall Norton parts to help me restore dads. I got a line on somebody who wants to buy one of my Kawi triple projects, and that'll mean good money for me. So, Mecum is a great networking thing. I did buy something at Mecum. It's behind me, so let's go take a look. Unfortunately, we did not buy a motorcycle. I would have loved to, but no, these are actually motorcycles that I own. This is my auxiliary storage at a friend's farm. This is my 06 Ducati Sport 1000 that I bought new. This is a 78 XS 650 that I bought for a very cheap price and got running last year. And then there's a Honda 750 that I've owned for 25 years. And this is a 1975 Honda 750. And you heard me refer to this in the videos a couple of times because it is a largely stock bike. One of the things that sort of breaks my heart is the factory Honda seat here has a nice rip. So when I said David Silver helped me out, yeah, one of the things I bought at Mecum was this brand new Honda 750 seat. Now, it is not the more expensive one that he sells that is 100% correct. This is the budget price one. And I'll show you why for a couple of reasons, but I don't need a perfect 100% correct Resto one. I have about 5 of those seats that are original Honda ones, and I could probably get an original Honda cover to recover one of them and maybe get, reproduction foam to make it feel like new if I need to. The pan on this is flawless. It's just, I'm a big guy, so I rip seats. Okay, so let's just sort of set this up on here. The first thing you'll notice is that it's too dark to film this, but I don't know if you can see, there's a Honda logo right on the back of the seat here. This one does not have the Honda logo. The buttons for the straps, the original ones are chrome. This is not a chrome button. This is a zinc-plated button, so it doesn't look accurate. Otherwise, everything's almost perfect on it, So I can't wait to put this on my bike. I got a brand new in the box reproduction wiring harness. So my bike has a few wiring issues. It caught fire at least once, so there's some burnt wires in there. And I'm having some issues with also old controls. So I figured I might as well redo the electrics if I'm going to get another 70,000 miles out of this thing. And what else do we have in here? This is the right bar control. Right hand bar control. And the reason why I bought this is my starter button is broken. The spring does not come out. The button still works, but if you press it to start the bike, it will start and not stop. So got a brand new one of those in the package. And finally, rooting around in here, I got a brand new, let's see if I can open this with one hand. Hey, who's the man? Oh, I hope that wasn't the keys. This is a brand new key switch. So, yeah, I've got a brand new key switch. And the reason I bought this is because I've been running a halogen bulb in that. Yeah, I did chuck the keys. Look at that. Unfortunately, these are not. These are blanks. They're not factory Honda keys, but I do have factory Honda blanks that I might have cut to these. Now, usually you buy these from Honda, they have numbers in them, and that's how Honda sold them, is that they just sold you a numbered set. But they also sold key blanks if you needed a set cut, like you wanted a spare set. So, the reason why I bought this is the headlight circuit runs through these, and I've been running a halogen light, and I think it may have fried mine, and my headlight's out. So I'm going to try replacing this, see if it turns my headlight on, and then I'm going to switch to an LED, which will not draw nearly as much power, and therefore will make my headlights work a little bit better and keep my electricals in good shape. What else can I tell you? The Sport 1000 is never going anywhere. It's never going up for auction. I'm going to refresh it. It's due for a service this summer, so we're going to do that and hopefully ride it and maybe film some videos with it. The XS650, I have a few more 3D printing projects I want to do. If you remember, I 3D printed my tank emblems, which you can't see because, oh, there they are. Because it's too dark. There is a video on how I did this. You can look it up. It's great. So yeah, the Honda, I don't know what we're going to do with the Honda, if it's going to be a series or something or what. I just like to ride it. It's a good bike. But yeah, the XS650 might be up for sale soon. Just because it's too small for me. I always wanted one of these, but I'm 6'5". The thing feels like a 350 under me. And if I'm going to have a 650 or a 750, I'd rather it be a Honda or a Norton, which have physically longer wheelbases and higher seat heights. So we'll figure out what to do with that soon. So that's it for me in my Mecum wrap up. Hopefully you've enjoyed it, and hit like, hit subscribe, and see you next video.